Today we shall react to another video of people from the African diaspora. Apparently, again, there is a battle going on in TikTok, of all places, between people of different parts of the African diaspora. Let us see what they have to say.
Peace, family. It's your brother Chase back at you again with another reactionary video. And this time we're going to be reacting to a South African woman.
Oh no, what is she going to say? I wonder how brutal this video is going to be. Now, I'm not going to lie, I did see a couple clips from it and it did not look good. So let us see exactly where this video takes us.
And this video kind of has gone viral on TikTok. This is a video that has caused a lot of waves through the diaspora.
Before he talks about what he's talking about, isn't it annoying how the Chinese have basically set up TikTok and they've allowed it worldwide, including in Africa, to divide several peoples and different nations, while they make sure that all kinds of division within their countries are put down. And also, they make sure that their people are at least trying to learn science. Now, at least for America and maybe other parts of the West, they could come up with the excuse that they're in some kind of battle or whatever. I don't know. But this shows that that has nothing to do with it. The fact that they don't implement the same rules for places like South Africa or other partners that they have.
Went viral about a month ago, but it just shows you the level that some of these tethers or coons, that we like to call them, was scooped to disrespect foundational Black Americans. But of course, we're going to do some straightening. Of course, we're going to do some checking. And remember, this is for educational purpose only. And I got to warn you.
I wonder what this guy would think of me as someone who does not speak down on any part of the African diaspora. And I try my best. I've tried, you guys have seen me, to talk about the entire African diaspora, including those who live in the Middle East, who live in very unfortunate situations, and also to try and highlight some of those individuals who have done good with their lives despite living in, I mean, a very, very crazy place that has a lot of backlash, a lot of talk about Black people.
This video is going to be very triggering. This video is going to be a video that is going to maybe cause you to pause the video. If you feel the need to pause the video, go ahead and pause it and come back. But I think it's important as foundational Black Americans that we don't get emotional and we just slow cook things. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to slow cook and slow debunk everything that she's doing and saying in the video.
So he's giving us a lot of clues here on what to expect. And I'm glad that he is basically giving us a statement, a warning about what we're about to see. And I will also say this warning as well, because of the very small clip that I saw, it was definitely not good. And on both sides, by the way, there's some stuff that he will say about Africa, which, you know, I will obviously disagree with. And again, this is not to attack anybody individually as a human being. I just disagree with the points. I don't hate this guy as a person. I can understand him trying to defend African Americans, especially if TikTok is feeding him content by Africans who are malicious, or maybe even worse than that, trying to create entertainment by causing division.
For educational purposes, so we can learn and we can grow from it and we can know how to debunk this nonsense that they talk about in the diaspora. With that being said, let's get straight into the video.
So before he starts, I want to first make sure you understand the context. So there was a New Orleans Mardi Gras that happened that apparently was started by vaudevilles long time ago, the blackface people. And these people were basically making a mockery of the Zulu Nation, and then it was picked up by African Americans who also chose to copy it, and then they started doing the same thing that they did in maybe a different context. Now, Africans were not necessarily happy about this, especially South Africans who belong to the Zulus. And as a partial Zulu, I can 100% understand, because the way they are portraying us looks nothing like what we look like. And then obviously the blackface part is not very good. And obviously there's the whole context of like, if you're going to do a Mardi Gras, maybe put a little bit of effort in finding out about Zulu culture.
South Africans are furious about this. There have been several videos going viral of a Zulu parade in New Orleans in the United States.
African Americans, you do to them what they do to us. Simple. You reverse the culture, you make a gimmick of their own culture. Easy.
So obviously, because South Africans took this as an insult, they decided that they're going to insult African American culture back and try to get back at them. Now, you know, this is going to be a very difficult thing to talk about because I can see it on both sides. It's like you can't have a Zulu parade that basically looks like it's mocking the Zulu nation and then expect nobody to say anything about it the other way. But at the same time, you know, probably need explanations more than we need mockery.
So there's a huge misunderstanding or argument going on between the people of South Africa, the Zulu tribe, and the African American people in New Orleans. Now apparently, they have been doing this particular parade called the Zulu Parade for over 100 years now. And the South African people are not really happy about it because first of all, the way these people are dressed and the name of the whole thing does not really represent the Zulu tribe.
I'm telling
so
you.
Briefly, the Zulu Parade started way back in 1909 by a group of African American men called the Tramps. These people saw a comedy skit in a theater by these people called the Vaudeville Troupe, and they were doing it about the Zulu tribe in South Africa. And then they got inspired by the whole thing, so they decided to create their own celebration. Because at that time in New Orleans, during Mardi Gras, the Abofufo had their own celebration. So the African American people, they also decided to create their own celebration and then call it the Zulu Parade. It has been handed down from generation to generation. Now, one thing that makes this particular parade popular is the fact that they hand out coconut to people. At first, they were hairy coconut, like the natural coconut. But then over time and due to lawsuits, they changed it to this particular golden coconut. Now, their videos really went viral. And the South African people, the Zulu tribe, they are not really happy with the whole thing. They are asking them to change the name of the whole parade. And besides, the way they are even dressed does not even reflect the Zulu culture. And this has become a back and forth between the people of South Africa and the African American people in New Orleans.
Yeah, it seems like there could be a little bit of learning for for both sides, but I don't know if that parade looks good. I don't think it looks good to anybody. I mean, to me, it definitely does not look good. So, of course, I had to put that context there so you can understand that this South African woman is not just throwing an attack out of nowhere. She's not just being crazy out of nowhere.
Oh, hell nah.
They not like us. 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 They not like us.
So I might be interpreting this wrong, but it seems what she is basically doing is trying to mock the history of African Americans. Uh, I mean, she looks like she's dressed like a maid, but basically she's and again, I might be wrong about the interpretation. She's basically trying to dress like a slave, and she's obviously got cotton in her hand, and she's trying to mock that. And again, with the context, let's first start there. Like, it's okay, this is how you guys mocked the culture of the Zulu, or at least to our interpretation, you mocked the Zulu, and now and I'm not saying this is right, we're going to mock your culture, and let's see how you guys are going to respond to it. And of course, if you put yourself in the Zulu situation, like, that would not be cool if there was like a whole African American parade in Africa and it played on the worst stereotypes, which I think is the point that is trying to be made here.
You think the fake gon' let you disrespect Pops, nigga? I think that Oakley show gon' be.
Oh, hell nah. My map done grew out.
Okay, and again, this is a South African woman. And we're gonna go ahead and break this down, family. But I want to play some more videos that she put out. And as you can see, this is a response to what they say was disrespect during the parade that happened in New Orleans a couple months ago. And instead of addressing what happened in New Orleans, they decided to again come for all foundational Black Americans.
So I understand what he's saying. The response that he is talking about would be the mature response, but I don't want him to, mislead a little bit there when he says they came after all African Americans. They came for the culture because the other one attacked the culture. So it's like a thing, like a, if you come for our culture, we're going to come for your culture type thing. It's not as like, oh, they're coming for every single African American. I think that's over exaggerating what the person is saying. Now, do I understand why every African American would be offended by it? Absolutely. Do I understand why the Africans would be offended by that Zulu parade? Yeah, it's not good, especially since Americans don't want to be portrayed, even if things have been going on for hundreds of years in different countries. They don't want to be portrayed in blackface. They should definitely understand why South Africans don't want to be portrayed in blackface. And then I don't know what they dress like warriors. I understand it's a parade, but they dress like some weird group of people in like a sci-fi warrior. And you could think of a way where they could change what they're doing. They clearly have some want to connect with the Zulus. They could watch the actual Zulu parades in Africa and sort of mimic that.
And talk about our lineage, our Holocaust that we went through, and to make light of it, family. So I want you to understand the mindset in which these people are coming from. I'm not even going to go into the New Orleans situation anymore. I already did that in the previous video.
So it would have been a little bit good if I saw him give a reaction to the whole New Orleans thing, give an American perspective. But, I can't find the video of him talking about it. His videos are like 1 hour, something long each. So it's very difficult for me to just go through each one trying to find the very specific place where he addresses it. So I'm just going to assume that he has some reasons why it's not as bad as it looks. So I want to say the thing that he says is actually somewhat appropriate, because obviously Jewish people sort of understand each other, and they're sort of the only group that can mock each other without an extra layer of hatred or even possibly a real threat behind what they are saying. So I want to address a couple of things. So obviously slavery happened in the Americas and that was awful. But what you're looking here are African American families who were freed, right, in America. They came to Africa, to Liberia, back to the Africa movement by the white Americans. And then when they got there, and I chose to block out this girl, but when they came there, they decided that it is important to enslave the Africans. So they got freed and in turn enslaved the natives. This is not to say that one was fine and one was not. This is not to say that anybody should be making fun of that at all. This is not to be saying any of that. All I'm saying is that Africans are very familiar with slavery, and I don't know if it's fair to say that that girl was making fun of it just so that, you know, trying to make fun of the horrors of it, but, you know, we'll get back to that. I mean, there was slavery in South Africa at the hands of Europeans. Now, I will be coming out with a video that will fully explain exactly what happened in Liberia because it's not as brutal as what the Americans did to the black people from America, but it was not good.
But you know, she continued. She continued.
They not like us. They not like us. They not like us. They not like us. They not like.
What? Told my baby dad in jail?
So, of course, again, for a lot of people, especially myself, you can see how it is in bad taste to say that it's the type of joke of what it is. And of course, you know, about prison and all of that and whatever. But I have to say at the same time that it's not unprovoked stuff.
Okay, and so you can see again, and it's funny to me how a lot of these Africans and Caribbeans and other people in the diaspora, they're always talking about how Black Americans, the West pushes propaganda on their people. The West is always misrepresenting their people. The West is always doing this. The West is always doing that. But at the same time, they take the most negative stereotypes they can possibly find. Okay, they can possibly find, and they display that as a representation of us as foundational.
Given the context here, that is kind of dishonest. Clearly, again, it is a reaction to this, which is the West taking the worst of some of the things in, you know, the let's say, just say African culture. Let's just take it that way, and then putting it out there in a, I mean, to me, it looks mockerish. I think a lot of people would be, I mean, especially given the fact that there's a lot of um, blackface parades around the world, which I've seen African Americans openly talk against, like the one in Sweden, which they say has nothing to do with racism too, and they say it has nothing to do with mockery or any of that stuff. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but to say that they portray the stereotypes, clearly she's doing it as a response to this. Now, do I think it's a measured response? Do I think it's a great response? Do I think, no, I don't. But I think it is a response that is different than, you know, than someone who just out of nowhere starts doing stereotypes about African Americans. It also makes me wonder what the context of the other woman that I reacted to, that he reacted to, what it was that she out of nowhere started talking about African Americans.
Black Americans. So the cotton picking, and let's break it down with the cotton picking first. Let me be clear, family. I'm not ashamed, and neither should you be ashamed of what our ancestors had to do on the plantation. I'm not ashamed of that because the real story is not that we were picking cotton. The real story is what we did despite of having to pick cotton, despite of being labeled a three-fifths of a human being, despite being told we weren't allowed to read, we weren't allowed to write. Despite all of that, their descendants came up with over 50,000 patents. Patents on things like the filament for the light bulb. Lewis Latimer is the descendant of those people. Okay. He not only lit up New York City, but went across the world to lit up places like London and give us the filament for the light bulb that we see today. The filament for the light bulb that South Africans benefit from. Garrett Morgan is a descendant.
So, of course, I agree with him here that the African Americans, especially when it comes to stuff like technology, in spite of living in a hellhole at the hands of the Europeans, did pull their weight in the world. There is no question about it that they have exceptionally gone beyond what people would have expected. And of course, people from the diaspora all around the world have also contributed. But to me, this is not a battle that matters. What is good about what he's saying because I don't think we should just highlight the bad of this conversation, is that part that the African Americans, for the most part, have not shown full wastage of the history of their ancestors, and that they have risen beyond what they were tasked with or what they were given in the beginning. I mean, they literally were like a diamond in the rough. Now, of course, I can mention hundreds of African inventors, thousands, but that's for another video. I've talked about how there's inventors in Africa that contributed to the light bulb as well and other things, and we'll talk about that in another video. Again, this is only important given the fact that Africa too suffered at the hands of America and Europe, and we suffered at a later date than the Americans did. So when the Americans were at least had the chance to do things that Lewis Latimer did, Africa was starting to be colonized in those times. And only in like the 1960s, in the case of South Africa, it was like 1994 when they were fully free to do things. Now, there were still South African and other African inventors. I don't even like talking about this stuff right now. It doesn't feel good, but it needs to be discussed because it's information. We need to know how people feel about Africa and African Americans and African Europeans and Caribbeans, which we will talk about.
Of those people who created the traffic light, okay, the modern day traffic light, the modern day gas mask. Granville T. Woods, one of the early pioneers of the electric railway system, okay? People like Maria Van Brown, the home security system. All these people are descendants of those people who were on the plantation. And those people on those plantations, despite only being a significant minority in the country, broke those shackles and chains, okay, fought and won their freedom in the American Civil War.
Again, this part of history is important. That's why I'm just letting him say it. And I'm not even going to like try and bring up African inventors to try and play the competition of who's got more inventors. I think that's silly. And I'm not going to play the game of this or that. All I'm going to say is it's a good thing they got out of it. It's a good thing they created, again, one of the highest economies in the world. It's a good thing they survived because not everybody does, especially as a minority. Now, I remember the part that I saw, the clip that I saw of this part, and there's a reason why he's using that word in spite of being a minority or despite being a minority. And that's because South Africans are the majority, yet we still happen to live under white supremacy in South Africa. And the reason for that is because it's a very different time. The type of attack you could make back in the day is very different than the one you can make today.
Despite of, okay, that's our story, a story of resistance, despite of, and despite of us picking cotton and being reduced and being told we are not shit on a constant basis, those people are still known around the world. Their descendants are still known around the world. See, you know about our story, which shows the power that foundational Black Americans have.
So again, I'm going to continue to call them African Americans. And yes, the power of African Americans has shown itself to be very great. And everybody around the world, well, most people around the world know about their story. And yes, people know about several different people's stories around the world. And that one is one of the most powerful one of resilience, especially given the fact that the majority that lived in America didn't fare so well.
See, most foundational Black Americans and most people around the world don't even know what happened to the South African people.
Oh, he was doing so well until that very moment. So most people in the world actually do know about the South African story. That's why it's used today in Israel as an example. Apartheid is well known around the world. Also, they know about triumphs as well with people like Nelson Mandela. I don't expect them to know every single detail. Half the people you mentioned, which I know and love, Lewis Latimer's and all those other people, they are not known by most people, but I think they're very important people. Now, maybe it's not well known to Americans, but people from China come to South Africa and they've been doing it for a long time because China used South Africa as an example of what can happen if you have runaway colonization. And they talked about freedom and everything. China, Australia, India, Japan, the Middle East, all of these places. South Africa is a great example of neo-colonialism, and everybody knows about the story. I mean, you literally also, if we just take a little bit of it, you literally did a talked about the Zulu tribe being, I'm just going to say, being paraded around in that Mardi Gras thing because they know about South Africa. By the way, that Mardi Gras has been going on for years and years and years. And yeah. Oh, yeah. By the way, South America knows all about South Africa and apartheid and what happened there. By the way, uh, at one time, Nelson Mandela was the most famous person in the world. I think the only person who was more famous than him at the time was the Queen of England. And yes, a whole bunch of celebrities would come to his concerts, the 46664 concert, and basically they would raise charity. International guests. I remember it was like the Spice Girls came to do his garden or something like that. There was a whole bunch of celebrities from all over the world who knew all about South Africa. So this idea that the world does not know about South Africa's history is not true at all.
Okay, they don't know what happened to people in Kenya. They don't know about Frederick Luger in Nigeria. They don't know about Cecil John Rose. You dig?
No. So I do agree with him that not every place in Africa is equally known, but South Africa is definitely known. In fact, if you ask most people around the world to name a country in Africa, it's either going to be Nigeria, Egypt, or South Africa. Some people know about Kenya? Yes. What do they know? Basically nothing. In fact, I bet you that most people who know about Africa, if they're going to name a town, it's probably, or a city, it's probably going to be in South Africa. Now, of course, I'm glad he knows about these people, Cecil John Rhodes, especially because, South African history can get real dark now.
They don't know about Mussolini and the Italian fascists who came through Ethiopia. They don't know, and quite frankly, they don't care to know.
So again, that one is not true. A lot of people know about Mussolini and his attacks in Africa, and a lot of people cared to know. I mean, it's one of the most famous events that happened. And Mussolini is, I mean, after the other guy in Germany, he's like the second known person who was really bad in Europe, and his efforts to Ethiopia and stuff are well known internationally. And they do care to know. We don't need to use ChatGPT to find this out. We all know South Africa, Ethiopia would be number 4, I would say, famous country in Africa, which I would say in the Middle East is probably number 1 most known country in Africa. See, I think he's talking about his personal perspective of people he might know, and he's assuming their ignorance. But, that's not exactly accurate what he's saying.
But we are such a resourceful people. We are such a resilient people that you know about our story. You know about our Holocaust, even though you're halfway across the world. You know what we've been through. You know about our music. You're playing Not Like Us. Okay?
Uh, yeah, we know about African American music because I mean, I'll be honest, because it's good. And a lot of African American music, of course, is inspired by African music. And a lot of it is, in my opinion, you know, due to some of the laws like freedom of speech and stuff like that, going to continue to be some of the most popular in the world. Obviously, there's African songs that make it to America, and yet a lot of Americans, a lot of Europeans, a lot of Caribbeans or whatever, everybody knows about Africa. I mean, do you really think nobody would say that Africa was colonized? If you want to make a general statement about African, I don't even think it's fair to do the competition of like what would people know about African Americans versus the entire African continent, because obviously people are going to know more about the African continent.
You know about our culture and our achievements and what we created. See, in spite of us picking that cotton, we're still more globally renowned. We're still more globally appreciated. We still have achieved more than you, a people who claim to have been free.
Okay, so maybe that's just like the American perspective, but I will assure you there are people in the Middle East who don't even speak English, who have very little care for African Americans or Americans in general. Like, most of them think that there's only white people in America. The word America, for a lot of people around the world, is synonymous with white people. And the West, obviously, is also synonymous with white people. So to say that African Americans are less known and have achieved less around the world, no, that is absolutely not true. Africa is a giant continent, and we have achieved stupid amounts. So much so that, like I said, celebrities from America would literally come to Africa to congratulate and to celebrate with Africans. I mean, we could talk about people like Haile Selassie as well, who play a very central role in the sort of Rastafari or the Rastafarian uh, movement. And of course, those same people who, some obviously were in America, but a lot of them were in Jamaica. They became international successes, came to Africa, performed in Zimbabwe, performed all over Africa. By the way, the fusion between African and African Americans colliding with one another in celebration of each other's achievements go back decades, some even dating as far back as the late 1800s. But when independence came, you saw a huge amount of uh, African Americans coming to perform in Africa. And one of the great achievements that Africans did was create cities so that these people could, it wasn't created specifically for them to do this, but when they got to Africa, there was places that these guys could perform in. They just major surprise compared to what was propagandized by the West. One of the most inspiring people to ever come to Africa is Louis Armstrong. So wanted was his visit that Nigerians literally paused a war to allow him to perform in Nigeria.
He went to Nigeria, seriously, and they stopped the war to honor his run. Yeah. We're going to show the picture. Here's what happened. Sure. Yeah. I'm serious. And now there he is. Look at this. They stopped the war and put him up there.
You know what that is?
Like a king there.
That's Leopoldville. Yeah. Man, we came off that ferry, and then we got in automobile, and no more shooting, and then they paraded all through the city. And the day of the concert, they put me on this chair. And you got to be somebody to ride in that chair there.
This is why it makes me laugh sometimes when I hear people say that Africans don't actually like African Americans. No, when Ciara came to South Africa, they honored her. They put her on TV. And not in a small way. When 50 Cent, whoever, they crowd these people. When Kevin Hart came to South Africa, they crowd these people because they love African Americans. And they don't just love their fact that they're musicians or anything like that. They love African Americans. There's actually a string of beautiful videos that you can see of Louis Armstrong performing in South Africa and Ghana and all these other places. And the one that he is performing in Ghana is the one that I would say you should definitely watch, because to see Africans still dressed like real Africans, like dressed how they used to, and they're responding to this African American dancing in their own traditions, it's next level to see.
Our culture is still more impactful than your culture.
Well, it's not exactly a competition. Also, let me ask this question: what is there to gain for African Americans being better than Africans? Like, in what real world do you see there being a true scale where we compare with one another, and then we do what with this information? Once we've compared, we're like, okay, your culture contributes more than the other. I'm not even going to agree with that, because obviously African culture contributes a lot to um, cultures all around the world. The entire pop music scene of South America is filled with African drumming. Even more traditional sounds like samba or mambo or anything you can think of from the Latin world has been highly influenced, well, not even influenced, it was direct taken from African music. And then in Latin music, the popular one, things like Shakira and stuff, even they acknowledge that all of that music is basically Caribbean African influence.
And it's understandable because he had a Colombian cumbia in the middle of the song. There's nothing pop about it. The rest of the
So for those of you that don't know, Colombian cumbia music is highly influenced by African music. Obviously, there's some European and some American Indian elements in there, but the main influence is African. And just like that same music, which, by the way, this is the influence of African music. You'll notice it, like hip hop, jazz, samba, reggae, whatever, Latin musics, pick anything around the world, even Middle Eastern music, domba, all of these things, they all have. African music is just so attractive that every single person uses it as a base to jump off of. Even if you talk about minimalistic music or the music era we're living in right now, which Philip Glass and all of those took from African drumming. Now, some people might not know this, but people like Shakira, which Shakira is easily the top of these, was probably the most biggest musician in the world. You can see even there 1.4 billion 2 years ago song. I mean, she is literally one of the biggest musicians in the world, in especially in the Latin scene, and she obviously inspired songs that would later come, like Despacito and all of that. And this pop genre is all African stuff. So again, this has nothing to do with comparison or anything like that. I'm just showing that, yeah, influence goes many ways, and popularity. And remember, Americans are limited by the fact that they only speak one language, at least most of them.
Okay. And that's what really gets them. That's where the envy comes from, family. So I don't get offended when they talk about pig cotton. I don't get offended because the cotton represents in spite of family. So I want you to understand this. And I don't want you to let people like this get in your head and get you triggered.
So I too don't want to let that stuff get into your head and get people triggered. And like I said, that whole Zulu parade thing, misunderstanding from my point of view. I think, again, things can be tightened up in either side, no matter what. I mean, we know that Africans have been celebrated around the world, including the Latin world, with parades. We know that all of that is true, but it's so much bigger than everything. But again, we must consider the perspective that this girl is coming from as well.
Because everything that we do we prove that we are the culture. Okay? The way that we walk, the way that we talk, they're over there trying to emulate that. Let's be clear. We are such a influential people that people can just simply make derogatory videos about us and blow up.
While that's true, that's just the algorithm. Like I said, TikTok and all of these people, they operate in that way where bad videos, I mean, this video is certainly not going to get the number of views that it would get if I was sitting here talking nonsense about African Americans the whole time. So, that's just the algorithm. And you can pick any group. You can do it, try it yourself. Pick any group and start calling them names and stuff, whether it's Asians or whatever, and see if it's not going to get you a viral video. It's probably going to be the end of your career, but it's going to get you a viral video. And also, to be fair, a lot of these people were being baited by those New Orleans videos of the Zulu parade, which again, I would love for you to give me the context of why they still do blackface and all this other stuff about it.
And become viral with that big of a thing. Okay? And they understand that. Now, this woman, before she started putting out these videos, I want to say she had about 2,000-3,000 followers. She now sits at 85,000 followers, family. That shows you we are the niche audience. We are the culture. If you can talk about and get the attention of foundational Black Americans, you go viral.
So there's some truth to what he's saying. And I agree with him that, yes, there are some levels of African American culture that will make you go viral. But I also think this is mainly the result of the type of fight culture that these social medias love. I mean, black versus white, Indian versus this, that versus that. They literally have plans written down, which have been put out there by whistleblowers from these companies, that these guys, that's what they do. They like algorithms that they like to, their algorithms like to look for the parts that will upset people, because it turns out that a lot of people like watching things that will upset them.
And that's what they understand, family. But I want to break down some more stuff, because some foundational Black Americans got in the comments section and they started to respond back to her. And she responded back to the response. But I want to break this down and I want to really slow cook this. But before I do that, family, I also want to show you this. Hold on one second. Now, what I want to show you, family, what I want to show you is I want you to.
I'll give him this. It's definitely cringeworthy. It's hard to watch what she's doing. It's very, it's up there in mockery.
Look at the comment section, because oftentimes what you have, family, is you have a lot of people who act like, oh, this is just one person. If you come to South Africa, they really love you.
Wait, you're not going to use the comments of a video where there's people who are already there to watch a girl mock people as evidence that a bunch of people. I could show, like I said again, I could show you actual videos of African Americans in Africa having a way better experience than you think. This is the bad part. So he's gonna try to now sell this fake thing that all of, I mean, South Africans is even the worst example, because there's not a lot of South Africans who go to America or anywhere else, or even have any experience with Americans outside of them coming to South Africa. But is he going to try to make the thought that they have like some great hate for African Americans?
Okay, look at the comment section. And I want you to notice, number one, this video has, the video I just showed you, has 182,300 likes. Okay, and by the way, I had to like the video in order to save the video. For some reason, something's wrong with my save button, so that's why I have it liked.
I hope he shows us some of these comments, by the way, because the top two that he showed were like whatever. Like the other one was South Africa is not for beginners, which is a typical meme in South Africa, which means you can't be soft in South Africa because either the humor here is very brutal, and then two, you can't be soft because it's hard to live in South Africa. It's not the hardest in Africa, but it's very hard. The second one said the unnecessary swearing. Now, obviously Africans have seen African Americans swear. I mean, we've seen some of the biggest things swear. So it is a kind of a culture shock for the ones that do swear, even on TV, where in South Africa, you're not allowed to swear on TV. It doesn't matter who you are. That's why our music, a lot of the time, does not have any of that at all. And of course, I know that African Americans are very religious, so I'm pretty sure they teach it against swearing culturally. But the last one I can't defend, where the person says, I'm raising my 3 kids, and then he mentions 3 African American names mockingly. And yeah, that's not good.
Okay. But notice the comments section. The overseen amount of likes, but the comment section. South Africa is not for beginners. Okay. This is somebody making light of it. This is
Okay, so he completely misunderstood what that person was saying. That person is not on that girl's side for the most part. The Africa is not for beginners or South Africa is not for beginners meme is not to uplift Africa at all. It's literally trying to, like, it points out bad things about Africa, and then they say South Africa is not for beginners. If this guy wanted to mock America, he would have said America is not for beginners. Him saying this is to some degree uh making fun of her.
another fellow South African making light of it.
No, it's not. It's somebody in South Africa, which you could take it in two contexts, but in either way, he's not making light of anything. He's taking it in the context that what she's doing is very brutal. That's the first one. Or the second one, he's making fun of her, saying that it's what she's part of the reason why uh South Africa is not for beginners. Like you can see in a lot of these where they show an African person being robbed, Africans, you know, carrying each other on their head or whatever, some crazy thing. All the memes that you in another video claim that Africans cannot handle from African Americans when they make fun of us. But these jokes are made by Africans as well about Africans. We mock the movies we make, we mock the music we make, we mock the living standards, we mock everything. Now, it wasn't as established as like stand-up comedy, and I would say the stand-up comedy in Africa is definitely not as brutal as how brutal Africans are. I mean, there used to be a joke when I was a kid of how do you know when you're in South Africa, and they would say my watch is gone, which means you're in South Africa if you've been robbed before. Now, to be fair, I've never been robbed at all, but you know, that's just a meme. It's not necessarily true of every single person.
That had 37,000 likes. You forgot the swearing unnecessarily, basically saying that foundational Black Americans, all we do is curse and use profanity, okay? All we do is curse and use profanity. That has 24,000 likes.
Well, to be fair, he didn't say all you do is swear. It's a pretty weird way of interpreting it. I don't even like what he's saying, but that's a weird way of interpreting it.
Okay. Here's another person basically trying to act and do a foundational Black American accent or act like somebody who's a foundational Black American. Says, I live with my 4 kids, Shambanquisha, Veronisha, Quintavious, and De'Aaron Curtis Jr. Okay.
Yeah, that one is definitely not good. That one is definitely not good. Again, of course, we can see the context that it's in, but I wouldn't defend it at all.
So they're trying to be funny. They're making fun of our names and what we name our kids, or some people name their kids.
Okay, so I'm glad he said it. Yes, the person was definitely trying to be funny. Again, bad taste, but the person was definitely trying to be funny. And yes, it is about the naming and stuff. And it's a direct quote. Like that is not something that that person made up.
Someone, this is the next comment. These are all in a row, family. I'm not skipping over any comments. Someone liked my comment so I can come back and defend her. These are people from the diaspora. The next comment. Kenyans gather here as we wait to ride for our cousins if needed. Okay, so now you have the diaspora jumping in it. And I told y'all that the only time we see these folks on the continent unify is when it's time to gang up on foundational Black Americans.
Oh, is that right? What about the multiple unifications when it comes to talking about Egypt and stuff like that? I mean, take Quilamika, take all of these people who one's from England, one's from Africa, one's from wherever. They come together and they talk about Africa in a positive way. If this is what you're seeing, then that's because this is what you're looking for. And just like these people here, the reason why they're commenting on this video is because that's what they like. This is not believe it or not, this woman is not extremely famous, and I have no idea who she is. Outside of your video, I've never seen it. Now, to be fair, I don't go on TikTok. I think it's propaganda, but
they don't show any unity. If you want to see Pan-Africanism on the continent, mention a foundation of Black American. They all universally come in agreement. Okay.
You can easily just write African tag or African diaspora tag in order to find out that that is not true. Africans in general get along, and you can see in many videos from Africa where they talk about Africa in general. Now, I'm not going to show TikTok because I don't have time for that, but if you go to YouTube, you can see that they come together and they talk about Africa in general. I mean, here they're just discussing things like, when was the last time you were in Africa, blah, blah, blah. And these flags symbolize that they all come from different parts of Africa. I can understand that from his perspective, he probably sees all those videos like Americans versus Brits, Americans versus this, Americans versus that. But there's like a whole bunch of videos, which some of them, again, are not in English, which are like Middle Eastern blacks versus blacks in the continent, this versus that, blah, blah, blah. And again, I wish I could find this, but I can't find it anymore. But there was a video from like Saudi Arabia or some country where some African woman was on TV defending not wearing any of the Middle Eastern clothes, and she was defending herself like crazy on TV, and all of these Middle Eastern women are just looking at her. And again, I don't want to sound rude, but there's more important things to worry about in Africa than people who are like far away from the continent. So we do come together and unify and talk about stuff.
Okay. They all universally come in agreement. That's why I told you they crop up these little beefs in order to get attention from us. And all of them fight for the attention. So they like, oh, damn, somebody getting attention from Black America. I'm a Kenyan. Us Kenyans agree 100%.
Again, this idea that this one commenter represents all Kenyans is ridiculous. Again, you can look at any part of Africa and you can see that they will continue over and over again to be overwhelmingly for African Americans or whatever. This concept of they hate us and blah blah, that's in your mind. You're finding a few people, which by the way, I can find you like some of the examples that I gave you. I can find you Africans saying it's a continent of billions of people. I can find you Africans saying they hate the moon.
Okay. Somebody said they are coming for the whole continent because they think it's one country. No one said anything about the whole continent. Okay. But the whole continent is coming for us.
I understand that he is trying to defend America. And again, I think there's a way of doing this with the way that I'm doing it or whatever. But the way that he is talking about it, saying that no one talked about the entire no one talked about the entire continent. He did speak about the entire continent, even though this girl's from South Africa and she really represents herself and she should be addressed for herself. And she should be addressed. If you're going to include anybody, include South Africans. I don't understand including the entire continent, but that is what you kind of did in the video, saying that Africans as a whole are jealous of Americans.
Understand the projection. Okay, let's skip down a little bit because it's more disrespect. You got to add that you're on your 15th child at 22. Okay, so now they're talking about we have baby mamas.
Again, he's trying to emotionally get everybody riled up. I get it. These people, they came to an already weird video and they're giving weird comments. You think I can't find any video of, African Americans mocking black people from Africa? You think I can't find a video of you mocking black people?
Different things of that nature. They never talk about the baby mamas that run rampant over there.
Now, to be fair, I have no idea where this Rachel person is from, but to be fair, in Africa, people have a lot of children. They have a lot of children. So clearly, this comment is not representing Africa. Clearly, this is somebody just saying something because they're mad or whatever the hell they are.
This is another very interesting comment. Hey, my South African brothers and sisters, the Jamaican Online Defense Force is on standby, ready to go should you need us. We fight for Africa any day, anytime.
You know what I'm starting to notice? It seems like he has way more hatred or way more focus on the other countries. Like, he still hasn't addressed South Africa yet.
So now you have Jamaicans getting involved, family. Now you have Jamaicans getting involved. And this is what we talk about, family. Whenever it's time to come for foundational Black Americans, they form the Avengers, the whole diaspora. Now, understand.
Well, first of all, who is they? They is whoever these people are, not the several other people you can find in tens of thousands of other videos which side with African Americans and other Africans just in general. It's actually a very easy thing to explain. Those guys are weirdos. And a lot of those people, they don't even live in Africa when they start speaking for the diaspora or whatever. And when they do, they're speaking for themselves.
And these folks can't agree on anything until it's time to come at us.
Well, first of all, like you saw in the previous video made, Africans agree on Nelson Mandela. They agree on anti-colonialism. They agree on just about anything, really. I can't even think of examples on things that they don't agree with on each other, like traditional medicines, modern medicines. Like, what is it that we disagree on so much? Do you mean that there's some close wars? These wars have nothing to do. Like, someone who lives in Nigeria, I can't even put it. They agree on a lot of stuff.
Let's be clear. It's time to cover us. And what's interesting is Jamaicans have a similar history when it comes to enslavement. All right. Yet they don't view it as that. Yet they view it as, hey, let's come for the foundational Black Americans.
Or, just to throw out another theory, Jamaicans do view it like that, but there are some within Jamaica who look at it differently for some strange reason.
See, we're public enemy number one amongst the diaspora. This is the truth, family.
So I don't want to contradict him by throwing another group of Africans under the bus, but enemy number one in Africa is definitely not African. In the diaspora is definitely not African Americans. Enemy number one is probably, in terms of like people having negative views that can't be that are, what's the word I'm looking for, that are unfounded, that's the word. it's probably Nigerians. There's a lot of people in Africa who have weird thoughts about Nigerians, and that's in the entire diaspora. That's not just the diaspora, by the way. That's just the entire world. I'll give you an example that you said. Nigerian scammers, right? You remember those guys? The princes and stuff? Apparently, that's every Nigerian. For a lot of Americans, it's all of that. Then there's the Africans themselves who associate them with drugs and prostitution.
Why Nigerians are the most hated Africans in the world.
Nigerians are loud and arrogant.
They don't know how to talk. They must go back to their country and learn how to speak. And
what do you think about Nigerians or Nigeria as a country?
Some of them, they are good. Some of them, they're not okay. Yeah.
Like, what do you mean they are not okay?
Yeah, it's like they sell drugs to the people. It's like they are destroying some other people's family. So they must stop it.
And even carry their passport to say they are not Nigerians, because the target there is Nigerians. If you go to Congo, they are not comfortable with Nigerians. If you go to Zimbabwe and Zambia, they are not comfortable with Nigerians. In fact, even a country that is close to Nigeria as Ghana have a problem with the Nigerians. There is a problem. There is a general trait that Nigerians have. There's unnecessary aggression that other people don't find comfortable.
Nigeria, a country known for her vibrant and diverse culture, great music and entertainment, notable people, as well as the negative stereotypes, is always on the lips of media pundits, news outlets and content creators, whether for good or bad. But why is that? Most importantly, why do we see this trend getting more waves and growing more than ever before? First reason is traffic. Videos or news about Nigeria and Nigerians typically generate more views and engagements, especially within the continent or when compared to news about other African countries.
Landlords or house owners, they don't rent their houses to Nigerians.
I've heard
that. I've experienced that. Most Nigerians, we've experienced that. This is why I think, because of what happened during the 1853 incident, there was hardship in Ghana, so Ghanaians moved to Nigeria. The economy of Nigeria was not too stable, so the president chased away unregistered citizens, because some Ghanaians came into Nigeria without having like a document or whatsoever. So they drove them away, and some were killed because they had to walk down to Ghana. So they have that thing back in their mind. It's really crazy that I wasn't even born by then. I know nothing about the incident. Our leaders did that thing to them. I feel so bad that such a thing happened.
This is the truth. Okay? Let that sink in. But let's continue, because again, she's going to start responding back to comments. She's going to start responding back to comments. Okay, so, she's going to start responding back to comments in the comment section, because some foundational Black Americans came and got on them. The overwhelming majority was people in agreements. But nonetheless, she responds back to the people in the comment section.
Okay, so I think I've packed a lot of information in this video. Let me allow you to digest this. There's going to be a part 2 in this one.